Pokemon Emerald is one of, if not the most beloved Pokemon game of all time. And what I find most interesting about Pokemon Emerald is not the amazing Pokemon that you can obtain in the game, the 2D graphics, which I think have stood the test of time, not even the hours of post-game content you can explore. Rather, what I love most about Pokemon Emerald is the movement. Some would even call it schmovement, but I would call those people cringe. The biggest reason that Emerald movement is so crispy clean is down to the Mach bike, the fastest bike Game Freak has ever put in a Pokemon game. It allows you to move at such a speed that when loading certain NPC trainers, you can pass by them before they even have a chance to turn. I mean, this movement is just awesome. Look at it. It's so fun to watch. Am I the only one freaking out right now? Why is no one else freaking out? It's so cool. There's not much on YouTube which talks about how intricate and deep Pokemon Emerald movement is, because it's a Pokemon game after all, and let's be honest with ourselves, the main talk is always going to be the Pokemon battles. But many speedrunners consider Pokemon Emerald to have the hardest execution in any Pokemon game ever. I mean, just look at one of the greatest gamers of all time, Smallant, in this video struggling to use the Mach bike. That has to go to show how hard it can be. Let's even take a look at the world record Emerald speedrun. I went through the entirety of Wave Warriors 229, and there was about 26 significant biking mistakes. This is no shade at Wave, by the way. This is just the expected outcome of mistakes you can expect in a Pokemon Emerald speedrun. If you also look at the current second place time in previous world record, it has even more mistakes, coming in at about 31 movement mistakes. So, even in the greatest speedruns of Pokemon Emerald that we have seen to this point, there is not even close to perfect movement because it is just that difficult. No other Pokemon game has runners making this many mistakes in terms of raw movement, by the way. Even in the same engine without the Mach bike, Pokeguy's Fire Red Leaf Green world record has only about 6 mistakes in comparison. Which, by the way, these mistakes are less punishing in Fire Red Leaf Green. For those of you who don't know, the Mach bike actually takes 2 tiles to speed up and is really slow in those first 2 tiles. Almost walking speed slow. On the other hand, the Fire Red Leaf Green bike goes the same speed throughout. The time loss of bonks is definitely noticeable in Emerald if you have too many, but that is just the surface level of the type of mistake you can make in the game. My goal was to create something that could showcase the difficulty of movement in Pokemon Emerald and have people try it out for themselves, which you could do right now. It's in the description. The goal is to set the groundwork on what a Pokemon Emerald movement-based ROM hack could look like, and then hopefully inspire more people to create cool things with it. Cause, let's be honest, I don't code very well, and I struggled to make this, and it's very simple, okay? I struggled a lot, okay? And there are better people at this, and I just want to inspire them and show them that the movement in Pokemon Emerald is actually really cool, okay? So I made something very simple and clean. There's already been a lot of awesome new hacks being created that are showing the potential Pokemon Emerald has for stuff like sliding ice puzzles and gym puzzle mechanics that I think we are only seeing the surface level of. Along the way, I found some crazy interactions that happen with the gym puzzles in this game when you are on the Mach bike. But you're gonna have to stick around later to see what. Hopefully one day we could create something that could be done to combine the difficulty of movement in Pokemon Emerald, but also the difficulty of battling, where you can still get Pokemon in the grass, use rare candies and vitamins to strengthen them up, and race to see who is the fastest Pokemon trainer. I also think it would be seriously fun if something was created where you can swap between the Mach bike and the Acro bike at any time. So you could have a Sky Pillar-esque puzzle to solve and then immediately have to do Acro bike platforming. You could even make a game where all of the Pokemon are static encounters, making them easier to RNG manipulate, and then have people race to see who is the best at doing static RNG manipulation. Okay, let me stop. There's so much potential. There's so much ROM hacking potential for races like this, and I think you guys get the point. And if you want to support me in potentially commissioning something unique being made in the Pokemon ROM hacking space, then please consider subscribing. It would really help me out in creating new videos for you guys. My next video is actually having Pokemon Speedrunners race in the ROM hack that I created, which is just a sneak peek of some of the content I have prepared. I have also been live streaming on this channel trying to get a bonkless run of Pokemon Emerald, so if that interests you, that is another reason to stick around. Now it's finally time for me to show you the ROM hack that I've created. I call it Pokemon Emerald Kaizo. Wait, Oh, that already exists, doesn't it? How about Pokemon Emerald Racing Game? Look, I haven't really found a title for it, but just roll the tape. It's montage time. How the ROM hack works is that you have to beat all 8 gyms and complete checkpoints of destinations found in a normal Emerald speedrun, which you have to complete in sequential order, all while trying to avoid Pokemon battles. Because this game is not designed around 8 gems to progress, there's literally nothing stopping you from sequence breaking the game, which you could totally do. I'm not stopping you. It would just be a cowardly move, and you would earn 0 street cred for doing that. Considering this game is made around the concept of speedrunning, it is less about can you beat the game and more of how fast can you beat the game with all the checkpoints and gym challenges. Anyone can beat this game, but doing it fast is what makes you a true Pokemon Emerald speedrun connoisseur. And to become one of those, you might need to learn about the mechanics I designed my hack around that make it so fun to go fast without battling any trainers. And the most important mechanic you will need is called a run to bike. You probably saw a ton of them in that little montage. It is where you run slightly into the trainer's vision to get them to turn a certain way and then quickly hopping on the bike to pass them. Let's look at an example of how this works using the hiker on Route 112 in Vanilla Emerald. The hiker is programmed to face up and right. When a trainer is programmed to face multiple directions, they are known in the speedrun community as spinners. Because the spinner is programmed this way, in order to get to the fiery path, we need him to face right. And in order to do that, we run onto this tile right here, manipulating where he faces. The tile which we want is the one tile above where he can see horizontally to the right and 2 tiles away from the tile he can see vertically up. Now that we have the hiker facing the right way, we've done the easy part, and now it's time for the hard part. The hard part is coming to a complete stop and then quickly getting on the bike. If you don't do this quick enough, the spinner still has time to turn in the direction that you intend to go. The timing window is very tight on this, so even in situations where you think you're going fast enough, with a frame-perfect turn, you can still get caught. Could you even tell what the mistake was in real time, or maybe even in slow motion? Let's compare the two in frame advance to get a better look. For a run to bike, you have 4 frames from when you run onto the tile to get on the bike and start moving. We can use the input viewer on the top to see exactly how my inputs were during these clips. In the correct run to bike, I am in the standing animation for 1 frame, then the next frame I'm on the bike, and in the next frame I'm holding left to pass the spinner. In the wrong clip, I actually do a frame perfect run to bike here, but because it takes me 5 frames before I actually hit the left button on the D-pad, it gave enough time for the spinner to spin. Run to biking is a really cool mechanic, not only because the frame window is really tight and the mechanic is really hard to master, but it forces you to get off the bike, making a decision on where to get off the bike, and the execution to put it together, very hard. If Pokemon Emerald did not require you to get off the bike in order to do optimal spinner passes, then the depth of the game would be so much weaker. Even in this example shown from 2 top Emerald speedrunners, they go for 2 different strats based on what they are comfortable with. There is also something called a run to walk manip, which is useful in Pokemon Emerald speedruns before we get the mach bike. But in this hack, we have the mach bike the entire time, so you're probably thinking, you're never going to use a run to walk manip. Well, it's actually useful when you have multiple spinner passes in quick succession. This is because, as I mentioned earlier, the mach bike takes 2 steps to get on. So in certain places, it's quicker to just walk than to get on the bike and then back off the bike. The next crucial part of the hack is called a bag manip. A bag manip is when you open and close the bag, which literally lags the game long enough so that spinners do not have time to spin. Bag manips are super useful, and I'll use an example from a recent Pichao video as to why. In this video, Pichao was doing a puzzle involving Dusclops where he needed to avoid them like trainers. If they saw him, he gets reset back to the beginning of the room. Even though he got through, in this moment right here, he had an unsafe pass, where if he just bag manipped, he could have avoided the opportunity to get caught by just opening and closing the bag. There was a chance of that dust collapse quickly turned to catch him, and then he would have had to restart the room all over again. Bag manipping is also a great way to learn how to run to bike. If you're just starting out and don't want to lose time to a spinner catching you when you're going for a run to bike manip, you can do what they call in the business a run to bike to bag. This has some uses in a speedrun too, where you do not have enough tiles to get past the spinner in time and need to use a bag manip to give you the extra frames to make it happen. Let's use this bird keeper on Route 118 as an example. For some reason, trainers will turn based off a running movement that even happens behind them. So we make sure to run to bike on this tile right here. But because we are 4 tiles away from passing the spinner, we need extra time to be able to pass the spinner. So what we do in a speedrun is we take 1 step forward on the bike and then pause to do a bag manip. The bag manip will give us enough time to pass the spinner safely. The main use for a bag manip in a Pokemon Emerald speedrun is using it to pass spinners that can otherwise not be passed by any other method, including a run to bike. For example, these double set of spinners on Route 112. My game decides not to use bag manips like this one because it takes the skill out of passing a trainer and also adds more RNG to the run. The current world record for how long this took in a speedrun, as far as I know, is from top runner Amoeba UK, whose Route 112 spinners took 29 seconds, which could for no good reason kill a fast-paced run. As speedrunners, we try to avoid bag manipping at any cost because it's just really slow. Look at the comparison between a run to bike and a bag manip. It is night and day. Now that you understand the 2 biggest ways to pass spinners, let's talk about some of the features of the hack. Every single trainer's vision is indicated by the different color tiles around them. There is also a flower, or maybe series of flowers if you have to do multiple run to bikes, next to each trainer, which indicates the tile you are intended to run to make the spinner face the way you want them to go. This is really helpful because, let's be honest, these meta tiles tend to blur together, to the point where even top level speedruns aren't always looking at the tile they want to stop at, and are using visual cues like this tree on Route 118 to line up the run to bike perfectly. Each trainer sprite in the hack will face the exact same as every other type of trainer in their class. So for example, all trainers with the youngster sprite will always face down and right, and all trainers with the psychic sprite will always face up and down. This is important so that if you see a trainer, you can instantly understand which way they are supposed to face based on the trainer they are. Most of these trainers spin in 2 different directions, but some spin in 3 or even 4 different directions, and knowing the difference can be crucial in places where it's not so easy for me to put indicator lines of their vision. Some trainers don't even move, and their sole purpose is to provide an obstacle to bike around. You'll need to learn which way each trainer faces because in the gyms you won't get the help of the lines to help you out. Since these are thought of as the dungeons of my ROM hack, I wanted to make it just a little bit more difficult by taking that luxury away. Also, I had to go and manually change all the in-game trainers to look like their new sprite, and can I just say, why do some trainer pictures look absolutely nothing like their sprite? The best example of this is the beauty trainers, whose sprite has long green hair and a white dress, and the trainer pic is of a woman with short blonde hair and a black shirt plus pants. It's like as if 2 different artists were tasked for making each, as if it was a group project and neither of them consulted each other on the design at all. Like, some of them are close, for example the cool trainers, but they just randomly made his hair green. Like, why? The cool trainers picked hairs closer to the beauty's hair than the cool trainers sprite. I don't know why. This just frustrates me and I had to let it out. Now that we're on the topic of trainers, another thing you might notice about the trainers is that they have the exact same text as the trainer that I took the data from, and honestly I had intentions of changing it, but seeing the trainers I took from the Magma Hideout talking about secret bases and going on rants to completely unrelated things was just way too funny for me to keep out. There's also a lot of other amazing lines of trainers, so if you have a favorite one, just let me know in the comment section below. Let's talk about some other challenges that are not spinner related. Let's talk about moving trainers. There's a series of trainers in this run which move in set patterns which you have to avoid using precise movement. One slip up, however, and you're sure to get caught by them. Every single running trainer has a vision of 2, and they also have the added difficulty of their vision not being indicated on the ground. Because their vision is constantly changing, I thought it wouldn't be helpful to put it out there, although there are certain spots you can stop at, like this, to study the movement of the trainers. This is probably a good time to mention, I also have a full segmented run of all optimal paths on every single screen in this game. Not all the movement is completely perfect, but they give you a good idea of what you want to go for to get a really fast time in this hack. Next, let's talk about rotators. Rotators are just like spinners, but they spin in one direction direction in consistent intervals. A lot of the rotators in this game are designed to punish bad movement, so anytime you bonk or have suboptimal timing, they can catch you or force you to wait a cycle. My favorite rotator is the one on Route 120, right above the grass patch. It's designed with perfect movement. You can just sneak in before he turns down. But if you bonk the tall grass, you will most likely have to wait another cycle before you move on. Now that we have seen every type of trainer you will encounter and the mechanics you will need in order to be able to avoid them, it's time to take a look at what an actual route of this game looks like. I designed the route to almost be one-to-one of an actual Emerald speedrun. Very first thing is we have to go through the opening sequence of Pokemon Emerald, where you get out of the truck, turn on the clock, and get asked to go to your neighbor's house. This is where things get a little weird. You'll see a mom clone outside who, if you walk down, will give you the running shoes. So do that and then head to Rydell's bike shop, which has finally earned enough money for a second store despite the fact he's just giving bikes away. I guess this is a good time to mention this entire early game sequence is designed around using May. This is because May is optimal in a regular Pokemon Emerald speedrun. You can still use Brendan, but it's just time loss since you have to walk all the way over to May's house for the running shoes. Once you have the bike, you can head up to Route 101 to interact with Birch's bag to get your starter Pokemon. I always choose Torchic for the consistent 100% accurate scratch, but Mudkip does more damage on average, so there's a case for both in my opinion. Also, I want to say I have no idea why the bag is doing the Birch's event script in this cutscene. I think it was when I got rid of one of the off-screen NPCs and it messed up something, and I just didn't know how to fix it, so enjoy the bag just moving forward after the fight. To talk to you. At Petalburg Gym, your dad will just give you the plain badge. Nepotism at its finest. Next, we go through Route 104 and Petalburg Woods to get to Rustboro City to face Roxanne's gym and also complete the Route 116 checkpoint. As I mentioned earlier, the gym trainers don't have their vision outlined, so be prepared for that. But if you read the gym statues in front of every gym, they will tell you how far their vision goes, which is very important, especially in Roxanne's gym. Once you have the stone badge and have finished the Route 116 checkpoint, then you can head back to Route 104, where you will take on the water route to do for town. By the way back in Petalburg Woods might seem pretty trivial, but actually jumping over the ledges is really slow in this game. So being able to avoid ledges and stay on the grass can actually net you quite a bit of time save. You might have saw it earlier in the montage, but yes, you can walk on the water in this game, and you do not need the HM Surf to do so. I like imagining when you were biking on the water in this game, you were literally going so fast, you're moving like Dash from The Incredibles. Anyways, once you get to Dewford, you might notice a shopkeeper just chilling outside of the Poké Center, and he is the only shopkeeper in the entire game. If you actually look in every mart, they're gone. I like to think of this guy as the guy who kidnapped all the other shopkeepers and became a monopoly on the Repel ecosystem. Or you can think of it as, wow, he has $1 Max Repels and $1 Master Balls, which you could assume is such a good deal, it put the other shopkeepers out of business. This is a good time to mention, I don't know where those other items came from in the list. This actually goes quite far down and you can get most items in the game. I'm not a software engineer. This is what my code looks like. If you make Emerald ROM hacks and you know what I did wrong, roast me in the comments because it's embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. The shopkeeper is useful for grabbing repels, which you need for all the caves of this game and also for the tall grass. They're also useful for the Master Balls, which you're going to need if you want to catch Abra. As you'll see in the route that I go for, Abra is very important to me because there's a lot of backtracking in Pokemon Emerald, which is mitigated by the existence of teleport, but you do not necessarily need to use it to beat the game. Now it's finally time for the Brawly Gym Challenge. You'll have to do some run to bikes in the dark, so be prepared to do that before you enter. Funnily enough, Emerald speedrunners already do this in Victory Road. It's really impressive, but if you know how many steps you need to take in order to run to bike, it's quite consistent. And it also being the last big trick after 2 hours of gameplay, most runners are quite nervous at this point, so it's quite awesome seeing them crush it. Once you have obtained the Knuckle Badge, head to Granite Cave to catch Abra and also complete another dark section. This is where I want to mention one of Pokemon Emerald's more niche techs, where if you're loading into the world, if you are facing into a wall, you can bonk the wall and turn around faster than you can turn around by holding the direction you want. I just said turn around a lot, but basically if you bonk by holding right on this wall right here and then turn left, it is better than just holding left after the ladder. It's a very, very small time save, but it is really cool how optimized the movement in this game is, and I think that's one of the best ways to show it. Also, you may notice this sign is the only side you can read from every direction. This is an ode to the Pokemon Emerald speedrun where you have to talk to Steven from either the right or the left side. This split the PSR community into two factions, Left Steven and Right Steven. I am team Left Steven, but let me know which faction you belong to down below. After more water routes, you head to the beach right before Slateport City, where you do the most fun puzzle in the game and the most fun puzzle for me to create, and then you get the Slateport City checkpoint. On Route 110, there are a few different quirks that I want to mention. First is the youngster right here. You can actually just pass really quickly on the Mach bike before he has time to spin. I alluded to it at the start of the video, but never explained it. Not bad. This works when trainers are being loaded in from the top of the screen, and when you are moving at full speed. You have one tile of perfect movement before they have a chance to turn. So, any imperfect movement makes it so that you can get caught. Next, there's the psychic right next to Cycling Road. It is really hard to time the movement because you can't see yourself while you're under Cycling Road, but with enough practice, you can get the timing down. Also, what I had in mind was way more sinister than what was actually created. I wanted to do a whole blind run to bike here, but trainers actually can't see you when you are under Cycling Road, so any running movement they won't turn around for. Despite the perspective being that you are both in line and the Cycling Road would be up here and you guys would be like here, it's really dumb, but yeah, this is something that I think would be really cool for, again, people who are actually good at making these things and aren't coding noobs. Once you're in Mauville, head to the Pokemon Center to get the teleport point set and beat the Mauville Gym Challenge. The Mauville Gym Challenge is fun because one of the switches might just be a red herring, but I'll let you find that out on your own. Once you beat the puzzle, obtain the Dynamo badge and head to Route 111 for a really hard movement section. Right now, you can beat Meteor Falls or Flannery's Gym. Both require you to warp back to Mauville, so take your choice. However, I will be doing Meteor Falls in this run. To get to Meteor Falls, we have to go through the Fiery Path and then Route 113. Route 113 is a cool section in my opinion. It is close to 1-to-1 to the actual Emerald version of it, but all the suit tiles have collision and can be bonked. It makes the movement more precise, as in a real run you have quite a bit of room to make errors. Then to Route 114, which has two ledges that if you miss will set you back to the start of the section. These are designed to frustrate your slight mistakes in movement and punishing it with having to do the section again. Let's look at one of these later in the game, which I did in a real run 5 times in a row, and I rage quit after this. But if you avoid these ledges on Route 114, you can make it to Meteor Falls to get the Meteor Falls checkpoint. Meteor Falls is where the route can diverge. You can go back to Mauville immediately and get to Rusturf Tunnel from Route 117, or you can go through Meteor Falls to the back exit of Meteor Falls and go to Rusturf Tunnel through Route 115 and then Route 116. From my estimations, doing Rusturf Tunnel from Route 117 is probably faster top end, but the execution is way harder. That I think on average, especially for new players, Route 115 might be the play. Next, we're going to use the cable car to head up to Mount Chimney to beat the Jagged Path. When I was looking at the map for Jagged Path, I didn't realize the extra details the foliage had in this area. The top part of the path has all the trees with soot, but as you go down the mountain, the trees start to get green again. It's small details like this that really show the charm of Pokemon Emerald and is why I could play this game forever and still enjoy it. Once you are done with Jagged Path, it is time for the Flannery Gym Challenge. This gym has a few fun movements. Some of the divots are red herring, so be careful which one you enter, but once you learn the path, this place is a piece of cake. Also, there's a small optimization we can do here, where if we bonk the wall right before we enter the warp, we can run the next screen. Because it is 2 tiles, the Mach Bike is really slow over short distances, so we don't want to be in the Mach Bike for that room. Once you get the Heat Badge from Flannery, next we're going to want to teleport back to Mauville for one last time, so we can head to Route 118 and 119 so that we can make our way to Fortress City. And for those of you who are confused that the Lava Ridge Town exit is blocked off by rocks, the teleport out of here for people who didn't grab Abra is the back of the Pokemon Pokemon Center, where you would go to the hot tub that actually brings you to the game corner in Mauville City in this game. On Route 119, don't forget you have to repel, as tall grass can still get encounters in this game. The tall grass section is pretty easy, but if you know the optimal path of running in and out of the grass, you can save a few seconds. Once you're past the tall grass, it's finally time for Winona's Gym, which is one of the most awesome gym puzzles in the game, even though it is pretty close to the vanilla version. None of these switches slow you down while on the mach bike, so you can just do them like you can in vanilla, but just really fast. It is really freaking cool to see these puzzles done so fast, and the movement itself is quite difficult. After obtaining the feather badge, the tough movement doesn't stop, as Route 120 is next, and this is quite possibly the hardest set of movement in the run in my opinion. Any slight mistake can also cost you a trainer battle, wasting much of your precious time. You also might notice this route has the section that tortured me earlier. It doesn't stop there, as there is still Route 121 and Mount Pyre coming up before we can get to Lily Cove. Mount Pyre itself is quite trivial, but again, I'm trying to make the route as close to the Emerald speedrun as possible, so I kept it in. There is a slight optimization you can do here, which is entering the Lily Cove Poké Center first before going to Mount Pyre, and then once you're at the top, teleporting back to Lily Cove. The Emerald speedrun does Mount Pyre first before Winona to get early Swampert by using rare candies found in Petalburg and Route 120, and then later using the Mount Pyre rare candy to revive a dead Swampert that dies from a Tropius gym trainer in the gym. In order to do this, we have to quickly enter and exit Lily Cove City before stopping out Mount Pyre, so when we complete Winona's Gym and all the extra magma and aqua hideouts shenanigans, we can just fly to Lily Cove City. Now back to our real video game, where we are done with Mount Pyre and it's finally time to get to Moss Deep City. By the way, I didn't know how to get rid of these surfing Pokemon, which you need to beat the Aqua Hideout for, so I just kind of went around them. Also, fun fact, if you leave Lily Cove and come back, for some reason they get shown to you as houses. Not sure what's going on there, but it is for sure funny. On your way to Moss Deep City, you have to avoid rocks and trainers, which are really tough the first time you do it, but after a lot of reps, gets a lot easier. The Moss Deep Gym has absolutely my favorite interaction with the Mach Bike in this game. When you step on a switch in the Moss Deep Gym, you do not lose momentum. So the game pauses for a bit and then you fly to wherever you're going. Normally, for small back and forths like this, the Mach Bike would suck, as you would have to stop and then have to go 2-tile startup for it again. However, with keeping the momentum intact, you can do these puzzles while still flying around the Moss Deep Gym. These switches leave the most potential for future race puzzles because people can just absolutely fly around the map while having to beat them. Once you have obtained the Mind Badge, there's only one badge left, which is in Sootopolis. Fun fact for all you diehard Emerald fans in the chat, you probably noticed that this is a completely different color of rock than in Vanilla Emerald. And yes, I did have to change the entire thing to accommodate my warp zone, which they don't make in the white rock color. As you probably noticed, I also left a little spot to bonk on right outside the gym, which is there because this gym is all about running movement on the ice puzzle. I actually wanted to do the entirety of the Sootopolis gym with the bike, but it actually moves so fast at top speed that certain tiles do not register and they will not let you progress. The main difficulty here is the trainers on the ice, and having to avoid them by manipulating where they face with running. The way to save the most time here is with precise running in the second section. See, if you take it safe, you will always be stopped by this rich boy trainer turning left onto this tile right here. But with some extra running tiles around the trainer on the left, you can beat him to that tile and save maybe a second in the process. It's one of those like classic speedrun strats that is just so fun and scratches the itch to want to hit it and literally save such an insignificant amount of time for most runners, but hitting it feels so good, and it kind of gives you that same feeling when you like lose in a ranked set and you're like just one more time. Like you get caught by the trainer and you're like, no, one more try, and then you're late for work, and this is a real thing that happened to me while I was testing. I was late for work because of it. So yeah, that's the kind of effort that I put into this. So yeah, in the final section, you'll find two trainers which you'll have to run to walk or run to bike in order to get past them. The one on the right is especially difficult because you have to run to the left to get him to face down, walk up, and then run right to get out of his vision. It feels really unnatural to do this type of movement, and it is one you don't see in the game often. But once you get used to it, you can run to the end of the section and get the Rain Badge, which means we are finally able to head to Victory Road and beat this gosh darn game. Again, another water section, which means more rocks, which we have to avoid on our way to Victory Road. Victory Road is basically just a one-to-one of the vanilla Pokemon Emerald Victory Road, just taking out all the interactables, the Rock Smash, and the Strength, since we don't have access to that in this game. And of course, the infamous Run to Bike that I mentioned earlier is still there. I wanted Victory Road to be as close to the real game as possible, so that when I have the speedrunners play it, the finish is something they are familiar with, so they can finish out strong. And once you beat Victory Road, head out of the cave and enter the Pokemon League. The second you enter the Pokemon League is when your timer stops. And congratulations, you have beat the untitled Pokemon Kaizo racing game. I still don't know what I want to call it. Please somebody give me a name below. Although beating the game on its own is not all that much of an accomplishment. You can really just brute force your way through the level 1 Magikarp trainer battles. At the end of the day, this game is about speed and having the fastest time possible. I consider a sub 25-minute run to be quite impressive, and I consider you a true speedrun connoisseur of Pokemon Emerald movement when you do a sub 23 time. My personal best, which I guess you could also call the world record, is a 22-minute, 23-second time. I would love to see if anyone can take on the challenge of beating my time. It would be my dream to see someone who has never speedrun a Pokemon game before take this on and actually do it. If you do decide to try to play this game, follow me on Twitter and send me the video. I want to see everyone's personal bests and maybe even world records. But that's it for me. I hope you enjoy what I've created, and I hope that I've inspired one ROM hacker to make something a little bit different in Pokemon Emerald.